Hello and welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Very eventful weekend. The week is gonna really get busy tomorrow with the Champions League. We had two back-to-back JAFP derbies. The bigger one, the more important one, the one that people will remember the most, the Desmond. A win for football, Harry, in level of technical performance, in how eventful the game was, in the result, because it's 2-2. We love a Desmond here, you know that. And in terms of the outcome for both teams, we draw against a really good side. You guys draw at Liverpool, which is, I don't know, like I've seen mixed reactions. Happy, sad, mixed emotions, as Aaron Ramsdale put it, I think, in the post-match interviews. He was kind of, I don't know what to feel here. How do you feel? Because on the one hand, you could say Liverpool should have won. On the other, you could say Arsenal should have won, given how controlled they were in the first half. And on the flip side, it's a Desmond, so we should be happy, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's well said in the last bit.
It's massive.
Yeah, that last bit's well said. How do I feel? God, I mean, that is the question, isn't it?
Overall feelings before we really get into the meat of things here.
Yeah. I think having had the extra 24 hours to reflect on it, and that wasn't kind of deliberate on our part, we weren't able to record yesterday, so this wasn't sort of strategic for me to try and calm down. Although, as you did tweet out and let the viewers know, I was experiencing slightly heightened emotions after the full-time whistle.
Indeed.
Which I think for a lot of the people that listen to this podcast might have made for better listening, so I can only apologise. But having had that extra 24 hours to reflect on it, I feel better about it than I did. I think when you sort of step away from the emotion of the actual game and the way it went, and obviously the nature in which we did end up losing 2 points, you can step back and sort of say that it's probably a bad way to gain a good point. And I think that when I look at it at the end of the season, if we don't win the league and there's plenty more games to be played and I'm sure plenty more twists and turns to come, I don't think you can put it down to drawing at Liverpool, despite the circumstances, which I'm sure we'll get into. It won't be that I look at and go, it was not taking 6 points off Liverpool that cost us winning the league going into the season.
There are a couple of instances where if you do win the league, you can look back and say, that was the league.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's this point, like, who knows? Like, you don't know what it's going to come down to, right? So I think at this point, there's certain things I regret. There's certain things I'm kind of not happy with the way it panned out. There's certain things I was very pleased with in our performance. But, it's just so much happened. It's the sort of game that, like, it's brilliant for a neutral, but it's the sort of game you're probably hoping your team isn't involved in. Particularly for us, there's a lot on the line with this. I think a win would have been massive, but also like had we lost that after being 2-0 up, I think that would have been crushing. Even though it's only a point difference, I think if you go 2-0 up in a game like that and you're in control as much as we were, and to the extent that we were, if you end up not winning and actually losing, I think that could break the back of your season. So in the end, as you say, like the second half and the way it kind of ended with a couple of the big saves that Ramsdale pulled off, and obviously Liverpool missed a penalty and had multiple they racked up nearly 5 XG, which is just unbelievable. It's one of those things, it's going to happen once a season to you, or even for you. And I know Liverpool have had some big wins, but like to actually have that quantity of chances it was almost in one half, really, because in the first half, they had chances, but really they had one big chance, which was the goal that Salah scored. A couple of other chances, which I'll come back to because there's sort of a few points I want to make on it. But it was really that second half, and it felt like a lot of the chances were big chances, and I think that's what kind of obviously contributes towards the final XG that Liverpool end up with, and this feeling that we did get away with one, really, with the way the second half went. If we'd lost that 3 or 4-2, we couldn't have had any complaints. But equally, if Liverpool had been 3-0 down at half time, they probably couldn't have had many complaints. The way the game sort of went. So
complaints about the fact that we're 4-0 down, but not the
I obviously I think it's interesting. Like they were probably 5 minutes away from getting booed off at half time. You don't say that often at Anfield, but kind of the way it was going, like it really was it was a distinct possibility. Obviously, they kind of get away with a 2-1 in the same way that we get away with a 1-0 loss in the second half. Like, if as we let Liverpool off the hook in the first half, they let us off the hook in the second half, only scoring 1 goal and probably not going on to win that game. Yeah. And so it's sort of like you get into the world of hypotheticals. If we kill that game off, if we go in 2-0 up or 3-0 up, like does the second half then pan out the way it did? You know, there's all sorts of different things you can look at, and ultimately just said that football is a mad game, and you know, you're talking about kind of fine margins with stuff in games turning on certain points, and it's just crazy. But overall, we've got to just take the point and move on to what is going to be a tricky run-in, and you know, obviously the team we're up against, they're looking good, and I think that's part of why people are so fearful, because a point at Liverpool was never a bad result unless you're in this situation where you feel like you just have to keep winning and winning. We've won 7 games in a row and then drawn to Liverpool. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that there's even a discussion that
title races against
any sort of wobble or is swung back to them, but that is just the nature of who we're up against, and you don't need telling any more than, you know, anyone. You've seen it. So yeah, lots to sort of look back and reflect on, I think.
The title races against Man City suck. We're gonna come back to the game, and kind of there's so many details, I think, from like a tactical and like psychological. I feel like this would have been a good episode for George to be here, because he kind of likes that mental side of the game and how things pan out from the way managers and players are thinking. But before we move on, I wanted to kind of let people know about something happening this Friday. Friday Eastern Standard Time, Saturday midnight in BST. Is it BST now? You switched.
We're switched now.
Yeah. So 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday, midnight on Saturday, BST. I'm part of a Twitch stream marathon, a 7-day marathon, and that's kind of the last day of it. That's Saturday. What we're doing is we are supporting Alzheimer and dementia research and care via donations. We have a goal of £1,500, and we've already surpassed, as of now. We surpassed £1,000 in 2.5 days of streaming, which is brilliant. So the idea is we're playing Football Manager as Maidstone United, and then we're passing the save on. So Jack or the cult of, who actually works for Sport Interactive, which I find is pretty fascinating. He started the save, and then he raids or sends his viewers over to the next streamer and the save file over. So we play like a tag team thing. Okay, you take the file over, and then on and on and on in 4-hour slots. And right now we're in League 1 after back-to-back promotions. But the more important thing is the cause and and support for dementia and Alzheimer's research. Delighted to be part of that again. We did a similar thing in September, I think, or October, where it was for cancer research. So yeah. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's also gonna be my last ever Twitch stream. I will be retiring from Twitch. So if you want to catch that,
big moment.
Yeah, massive moment. That'll be the last Twitch stream for me, and it's a good way to go. I think. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you feel like you want to stay up late and you're based in the UK,
it's a weekend. No excuses.
It is a weekend. Exactly. All right. Enough of that. Go donate whatever you can on any of the streams, and you can follow them on they have a Twitter page as well. FM Community Charity, I think, is the Twitter page, something like that. I'll link to it in the description too. Okay. Tactics. Trent playing in midfield. I have a bone to pick. I have a bone to pick. I think he was clearly good on the ball. But one of our main problems, Harry, is that defending down his side was problematic because he plays high up the pitch, and who's supposed to cover for him is either Jordan Henderson, who played this game, who doesn't have the legs anymore, quite clearly, and we know this. We know this, right? Or Harvey Elliott, who didn't play this game.
Mm.
So I feel like this move like tried to solve something, but it didn't really solve for the bigger problem. Like, it solved for the lack of midfield, numbers and quality, right? That's one of the big things. But Martinelli had the day of his life down his side, right? Because when Trent is so, is in essentially a double pivot, it's like a Zinchenko, it's like Rico Lewis with Man City leading up to like that kind of Christmas period, where the right back or the fullback plays at a double pivot with the DM.
Yeah,
I'm honestly not a fan of it. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like there's a lot better solutions to this. One of them is maybe playing a back five and getting, if you want Gomez as the right hand side of the back three, and then you can switch that to a back four. So you have like Konate, Van Dijk, Gomez on the right, and Robertson on the left. So you have a back four where Gomez can play a right back. And then if you want to switch it to a back five where Gomez tucks in, and then Trent can be a wing back, and then Robertson can be a wing back, which clearly both of them could be able to do. That's a better solution, I think, than playing Trent in the double pivot, and I don't want to see it again. It's basically. What do you feel about this?
Well, it's interesting because my reflection on it, obviously, the second half happened second, hence it's called the second half. But like, my memory of him in this game is him playing quite well. But that's because in the second half, obviously, Liverpool had a lot of the ball. He got on the ball a lot. He obviously creates the second goal, and he got into some dangerous areas. But does that require him starting in the position that you've just described? Starting from a central area, because you're right to draw attention to the fact that obviously we end up scoring the second goal down that side. Now, I must be honest, I don't think that necessarily comes from him inverting. I think it just comes from him not doing a basic job of defending, which is looking over your shoulder at someone running in behind you, because it's just crazy what he does. But I get your point, because like it clearly seemed like a strategy, with this game in mind. It's not something you've seen him doing particularly often. They were very, very quick onto it on the Sky Sports coverage, drawing attention to the fact that positions he was taking up. And he didn't look wholly comfortable. I mean, it did seem quite strange, because clearly, obviously, they hadn't had much time to work on it, because they'd only had a few days leading up to the game. And it didn't look right. In that period where Liverpool didn't play well, it didn't look right. But, he gets on the ball a lot in the second half and is dangerous. So, maybe Klopp could argue that in the end it worked. I tend to agree with you. I don't think it particularly looked right. But, Liverpool hadn't looked right all season. So I can understand trying to do something different, trying to get him into different areas, trying to stop a position of strength for Arsenal, which is obviously that kind of left interior. But, the left wing's also a position of strength, and it probably did give Martinelli an easier task in that first half, And I know he scores a goal from a central area, but he also has the ability to stand wide and spin in behind and, obviously rotate with Jesus and create width. So you've got to be good on that side defensively. I think that's the sort of first port of call, especially when Liverpool haven't been defending particularly well. I know they got a clean sheet against Chelsea. Not quite sure how they managed to do that. Everyone gets a clean sheet against them as well. Yeah, I mean, we can just sort of say that while they're not here. But I didn't understand it. It would be my takeaway from it. But equally, I mean, he wasn't the only one in that kind of opening 40 minutes that just didn't look. None of it looked comfortable. I've
hard to watch.
Yeah, I can imagine it probably was. It was a really strange game, because neither team played well at the same time. It was kind of just, it was all Arsenal, then it was all Liverpool. So it's sort of like, in the end, obviously Liverpool create a higher. They were better in their better period, no doubt. And to be honest, at Anfield, it's what you expect. When you come under the cosh, you're going to come under the cosh heavy. I think my problem with it is it went on for far, far too long. Like, I think 50 minutes, essentially. Call it 45. It was basically the entire second half, bar the first 5 minutes of the second half where we were okay. But after that, pretty much from 50 onwards, we were in the cop, just defending. And it's just a strange one to sort of look back and try and analyse, because people are going to be very, I suppose, my kind of thing I would bring it on to is people are going to be very keen, and I probably would have done this yesterday if we'd recorded yesterday, to draw attention to what goes on with Trent and Xhaka in the 40 whatever minute it was, 39th minute.
Yeah.
Now, and the kind of mainstream coverage of it on Sky Sports particularly wanted you to focus on that. And I think it's sort of a subtle, deliberate little thing where Xhaka's an easy target for this, and he doesn't do himself any favours sometimes, but they've kind of been waiting for this from him all season, where he does something and they can kind of point to that and go, right, this is the moment where, something has happened, and you can sort of see the cracks starting to emerge, and this is maybe the sort of turning point. Now, what doesn't help his cause, and is actually something I want to come back to, is because Liverpool score straight after that. Now, if people want to say the two things are linked, then fine. What I would say is any joy Liverpool had in that half was down that side. We did not defend the right side well at all. Robertson had a big chance in the first 15 minutes where he probably should have scored. And then there was another chance where someone put one across for Salah and it didn't quite fall. Both down that right-hand side. And we didn't defend it well all afternoon. And it carried on in the second half. And obviously I know they scored the goal down the left, and the left wasn't much better, if I'm honest. And frustrates me why Zinchenko was left on as long as he was. But that right-hand side wasn't right all afternoon. Ben White getting a yellow for nothing didn't particularly help, I must be honest. But they looked to exploit it. Like, Jones took up a very kind of wide left position. He was drifting over there, and he obviously creates the goal with it's a good back heel from him, right? And it's a good move. It's not good defending by Arsenal, but Xhaka winding the crowd up doesn't get the crowd up. Liverpool getting the game back to 2-1 is what gets the crowd up right before half time. If that game goes in right, and I'm glad you agree with me, because I think people are keen to make this about stuff that it probably shouldn't be. Because I think if that's anyone other than Granit Xhaka, and maybe no one else does it, but let's just look at the actual incident as a whole. Canate fouls Xhaka, right? That is a foul. He pushes him in the back. There were fouls given for far less in the game, right? It's a minor thing, but it should have been a foul. He's then wound up, and he probably leaves a little bit on Trent as a result, right? He was a little bit naughty. Trent reacts, and then that's what sparks it. And I don't blame him necessarily, because Liverpool needed something to spark their performance, the way it was going. And I think if it wasn't that, it would have been something else, because we were agitating Liverpool. Like, we were wasting time. There was a few things where players would go down with head injuries. They weren't injuries. We were just trying to break the momentum of the game, because what you get at Anfield is wave after wave after wave after wave, and it is mentally taxing. I think Arteta went into it with, what's not going to happen here is they're just going to keep coming at us. We need to be able to break it up, and if we can't break it up with our play, we need to break it up by being subtle and clever and just disturbing the game. And we've seen teams do it to us this season. Like, it happens when you're a good side, when you're playing well, teams will do it to you. So if it wasn't Xhaka doing that, it would have been that. It would have been the time wasting. It would have been the faking injuries. It would have been, maybe Liverpool put together some sort of good play. It would have been something. You're not going to silence Anfield for 90 minutes. I think that's just wishful thinking. And so I guess my point on all of that is I would rather focus on the stuff we didn't do well, like the defending for that goal, like not being able to retain the ball in the second half, right? Yeah. Too many killer balls, too much just giving the ball back and having to defend straight away. What's the longest period we kept the ball for in the second half? Like, I honestly cannot remember us having a 5-minute spell where we just kept the ball. And that was what we were doing well at the start of the game. There was no impatience, forcing stuff, trying to be... I know you've got to play on the counter-attack a little bit, because there are spaces to attack into, but not every ball has to be a Hollywood pass where you're trying to put someone through on goal 1v1. And how many times did we just give the ball straight back to Alisson and then Liverpool would just start again, build another attack with no pressure? That's my gripe with the performance. People want to make it about little things like that, and you know what? If that's your way of going about it, then fine. But that's what I have a problem with. I have a problem with Arteta and his substitutions in the second half, where I think he made them too late, and then when he did make them, I don't think they were the right substitutions. As I said, I don't know why he left Zinchenko on. I don't really know why he brought Kivior on, if I'm honest. I think it was to do with Firmino, because Firmino came on and then he brings Kivior on straight away, and then he basically went and followed him. Didn't work. I don't blame him that much for it. The guy, like, it's a tough game to be thrown into, but like they're the things I'd prefer to focus on. So I don't think we did those well, rather than flare up, which, like, if you actually watch it back, like, so much more is made of it than what it actually is. It's the sort of stuff you get in nearly every single Premier League game. It's just because it's Anfield and because they're 2-0 down at the time. Yeah. Like, more gets made of it than I think what it actually was.
You know what? Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, and there's a
lot that went a bit longer than I intended, but yeah.
And you went in 3 different directions. I feel like it was 3 very important points. Which is, you know, peak Harry after an Arsenal game. Granit Xhaka, the incident. The first I heard about any... Like, I'd forgotten about it. Like, I'd not even had it in my mind as something that could have, like...
Did they make a big deal about it on the US coverage, by any chance?
I didn't watch the post-game US coverage on NBC.
So during the game, though, did they, like, draw particular attention to... Because basically, on the Sky Sports coverage, you had Carragher and you had Neville, who... These guys, like, I've been critical of Neville particularly, but like they know their stuff to a point, but they're very obsessed with the details like that. Kind of the less tactical and more sort of like maybe human side of it, like the psychology of it all. And that was the thing that they were straight away, like within seconds, like, why is he doing that? Why is he poking the bear? There's no need to get like it was so forceful. As a viewer, you could not ignore it. It was not something like you were describing that you didn't even notice it. It was literally, this is what I said at the start, it was being rammed down your throat by the coverage. One of the first things they do at half time is go to that incident and say, you know, is this the like, such attention was drawn to it, and I fell into the trap. I was furious with Xhaka at half time. I was furious with him after the game because like, why did he do that? And then you go back and you actually watch it without like the voices, you know, of those guys just hammering on and on and on about it, and you watch what actually happens. And I just think more is made of it, and you're sort of being fed sort of a story that potentially wasn't really there.
Yeah, and the one thing that brought it back to my attention, I didn't pay attention to the commentary, which I normally don't when I watch games, but what I was going to work and putting the Second Captains show on. That was when they brought it back up because, and I'm thinking, what are they talking about? Like, what incident is going on here? What did Xhaka do? I don't remember. But I think it's a non-factor. It's completely overblown. And I've never been to Anfield. I've never played professionally there, obviously. So, you know, Neville and Carragher obviously know, like, if that is a thing.
Yeah.
I just think it's like, come on.
I just think
that's not a thing.
In a 90-minute game as well, there's going to be something. There's going to be some sort of provocation. It's very difficult to go into an atmosphere like that and just be completely ice cold to everything.
Yeah.
Like, in an ideal world, maybe he doesn't do it. Like, I can understand, like, the argument: don't poke the bear, don't give them anything. But like, how feasible actually is that? As I say, there'll be something else. It might be a strong tackle. It might be, you know, a dodgy referee. It might be the linesman elbowing Robertson, which we haven't gotten onto yet. But like, it might be something like that that's completely out of your control that like rivals everyone up.
We'll go back to the elbowing thing.
Wow.
But you talked about 2 more things in that little segment. I remember one of them, which was
I did ramble.
Yeah, you did ramble. One of them was like how you kept giving the ball away, which
in the second half, yeah,
I felt the exact same way the first half. We would there was the lack of connection between the midfield and it was the back line. It was Konate and Virgil, and then right in front of them was Trent and Fabinho, and then far to the right, Henderson and Salah, and then far to the left is Robertson and Jota, and then far forward is Curtis Jones on one side, like forming like a little combination thing. If you look at the pass, which wasn't really a thing, but he was just like occupying half spaces. And Gakpo was looking to make runs. A really bad shape in general. To me, it wasn't cohesive. It looked slightly unprepared. Trent was good. Like Trent in terms of his individual performance on the ball, I find that he did, for the circumstances, he was okay.
I thought he really well in the second half.
His decision making on like where to find passes, when to offload passes, when to carry, was good. And if we can find a way for him to have him do that and protect the right hand side, go for it. But no. The one other thing, I don't remember the third thing he talked about, but there is certainly one thing about the second half that Kivior.
Yeah.
Kivior made the substitution was being made. And I was literally typing in the Discord, in the Alcott Discord we're both in. This feels like 2-2. As Kivior came on. This felt like a substitution that's giving me vibes, and we were pressing, like we were like.
I have to say,
having all the ball, making all the chances, and it just felt like this is really backs to the wall.
Well, what's interesting about that is, watching the game, I have to say, like, the way the second half went is as torturous an experience as I've had. And I went back and I had a look at it, right? So between minutes 58 and 80, Liverpool didn't have a shot, which might be hard to believe, right? Because it did feel like we were under pressure. But when you actually think about that, you'd sort of look at it, okay, like, you've taken the stem out of it a little bit, you've weathered the storm a little bit. Mm-hmm. Is that the right sub to make? Now, what I would say, we're a little bit unlucky with some of the injuries we had, because if you look at our subs that we typically make to try and see games out, right? Rob Holding's one of them. Rob Holding started the game, and he has his limitations, right? He is what he is. But what I think he's quite good at is, if we need to defend the box for 10 minutes, chuck him on in the middle of a back three, and he's fresh and he's seeing things in front of him, and I think he can do a job at that. The problem was he was obviously already on the pitch, right? Because we didn't have Saliba, he played 80 minutes. We didn't have Tomiyasu. Ben White didn't have a good game. He was also tired, right? Ben White would have been off after 65 minutes if we had Tomiyasu. I'm absolutely convinced of that. It's a sub that whether it's him coming on or him coming off, we always change the right backs. I'm convinced that would have been a sub. Eddie Nketiah, I think, would have been a sub in this situation. More than someone like Trossard, who is great, not a transitional player. Not someone that, when you're under the cosh and you need to sort of punt it long, be a bit more direct, chase down long balls, put pressure on people. Eddie's more of a runner. Eddie suits a transitional game, which is what it became, much more than Trossard, for all his sort of, merits as a player. And he's been very good. He's not that sort of player. He's very good when we have a lot of the ball, which, we do in a lot of games.
If it is a transitional game, I kind of slightly disagree, because Trossard...
I don't think he's not a sprinter.
He's not a runner. He's not a sprinter, but he will find the final ball.
Oh, absolutely, but I think you need a runner as well. And the problem we had was Martinelli was knackered. And you see that with that pass he makes at the end. His legs were just completely gone. And the shift he'd been putting in, I can't say I blame him. Saka wasn't much better, but the problem is we had to take Jesus off because he's coming off a 3-month injury. And I even think someone like El Neni, I think we would have put him on as well, because I just think he's an extra body in midfield. He's an experienced player. And I don't love the guy. He's a limited footballer. No offense, but I think he's someone that we definitely look to use in those situations. So this isn't me being wise after the event, because I was very critical during the game. I was like, why is he not making subs? Like, something's got to change here. And then you sort of look at it, and one is it probably wasn't as bad as I felt it was, because you at least weren't getting shots away. Now, you did put Firmino on, and as soon as you put Firmino on, I was like, he's going to score, because he always does.
He's got to start.
He was quite good against Chelsea, I thought. I was surprised he didn't come on sooner.
I don't know, man. Why are we putting him on the bench
as well? Yeah. But the other thing was, like, as I say, we just didn't have many options. Like, when I look at that bench, for all those players we had on there, the one that absolutely should have come on is Kieran Tierney, because he is by far our best defender out of all the fullbacks defensively, because he can actually defend 1v1 much better than Zinchenko. There's no way Tierney gets nutmegged in the corner flag like that, and if he does, he just fouls him. There's no way he's letting him run past like that. And I don't necessarily blame Zinchenko, because he was tired, and he's never been a great 1v1 defender. He doesn't have to do much of it playing for us, or for Man City when he was there. But Tierney's played well whenever he's had appearances for us as a sub. And he's just had a good international break for Scotland, and he just refuses to use him at all. And it's just infuriating beyond belief. I was so angry when he scored down that side, because I said it 15 minutes before. I was like, just take him off, man. We're not. It's not like we need him the way we're playing them. We're defending. He's not a defender.
I think it's down to what the style of play is.
It's a stubbornness. It's like principles, isn't it? Like he sees.
Maybe.
But the way the game become, we weren't playing as Arsenal 2022, 2023. It was literally just a backs to the wall. We need to grind this out and get the fuck out of it, because like we were so under the cosh, and the way the game was going. And do you know what's frustrating about it? He'd accepted that because he brought on Kivior and went to a 5 at the back. Yep. So it's like, if you're going to accept that it's become a defensive game, you've taken your centre forward off, right? You've got 2 wingers that are knackered. You're basically just going to ask them to defend and double up. You don't want them really running the other way. I mean, look at that ball Saka puts across when he skins 2 players. Like, no one was anywhere near 30 yards of that ball. He just gets played across the 6-yard area, and no one's anywhere to be seen in the shot. So it's just frustrating, Ali. It is, because I look at it, and this is why I can't stomach the whole Xhaka incited the crowd, because there's just other things I look at and go, they weren't right in our performance. He didn't make the right decision. There were other individuals that didn't play well on the day. Like, they're the things I'd rather focus on than someone winding up the crowd, which is just a complete intangible.
I feel that the Xhaka thing, attributing the, giving up a 2-0 lead to Xhaka getting angry, as anyone would in any, like, that happens every single game at least once, right? Someone will score out to someone else. It's quite lazy, to be honest. But your overall feeling after the game was just disappointed, right? That's
it was initially. It has to be. Like, in any game where you're 2-0 up and you don't win, of course you're disappointed. And it doesn't matter who you're playing against. Like, if we go 2-0 up against Man City in a few weeks and we don't win the game, I'd be disappointed. But it doesn't change the fact that they're Man City. It would be a great point. And I'd still maintain, even Liverpool this season, I know they've not been great, and you'll be the first to tell me that, at home, they're hard to beat. Like, when they generate an atmosphere like that, it's bloody hard to come through it. And I know I'm talking about things that should have been done differently, but I understand that it's not easy. And so I can step away from it and say, like, it's not a bad point. We just got to take it and move on. And if we don't win the title, it won't be because of this game. It'll be because of what's come before it in a couple of games, and it'll be ultimately because of what is to come. And that's the unknown at the moment.
Yeah. I couldn't help but feel quite dejected after.
It's interesting, right? Because, like, you see that as a Liverpool fan, and you look at it and you go, where has that second half been all season? Why does it take being 2-0 down?
Honestly, that wasn't it. That wasn't it.
So what's the reaction?
It was the fact that the first half, there is a few things. There's probably 3 things. The first half was as awful as it is from us.
Yeah.
The Salah penalty. And the
chance. I haven't even spoken about that. That's how much has happened. We've not even spoken about Salah missing a second penalty in a row.
Yeah, off target. That's the first time he's done in his career. And the third is the 2 Aaron Ramsdale saves, one from the deflected shot from Salah and one on the line from Konate, which probably contributes like 1 XG. In terms of XG, we have like 4 XG.
Yeah.
0.8 of it was from a missed penalty, and probably one full.
Yeah, I mean, it's about as high an XG as you can get. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's crazy.
So, like, when you really look at it, it's actually a lot less XG from really good chances. Like the Robertson one is a really good chance. Really good chance versus how they dragged wide.
The 2 goals are good XG as well. I mean, they're both.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
kind of happens.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but feel, oh man, like come on, we needed to win this, and it feels now it feels top 4 feels very far away, and it is in fact very far away. It's 12 points away with 7 games.
I think you needed to win at least one of the 3 games this, because the fixtures now, like, you've got some winnable games, and I know that's kind of what's been tripping them up all season, particularly away from home, just dropping points in games that, you know, of the past they would win. But it felt like if you could have won yesterday or could have won at Chelsea, and Man City are bloody hard to beat at the moment, so like that, whatever. But if you could have won one of those games, you could still look at it and go, if they put a run together, because I don't massively trust any of the other sides. I think they all kind of have their faults, as is the case with any top 4 battle. Like, points do get dropped. It's not like the title race where you're just expecting to win every single game. Like, you can probably lose the odd game and still get it. But 12 points is a big gap. At this stage in the season, you're relying on a lot of help. And it's not just that, it's the fact that there are multiple teams now ahead of you. You know, even if you go sort of further down, you've got the likes of Brighton. I don't think Villa will stick the course, and I'm not just sticking the boot in, but I don't think you have to worry about them. But Brighton have got a couple of games in hand. Yeah. Obviously, Spurs are, you know, they're always there or thereabouts. You know, Newcastle have found some form. Yeah, I mean, when I look at it,
Villa are above Brighton. Villa.
Yeah, that just doesn't feel right to me.
Not 5 months ago.
Emery's doing his thing where he just, like, you sort of, you look at the table and you're like, oh my god, how are they there? Like, how did this happen? And how are they doing it? But they continue to get results. Like, credit to them. It's going to take a lot, and I think that's been I think it's sort of, it's felt like that for a few weeks. It's sort of, everyone's thinking, okay, once they're clicking together, they'll have a chance, and then you sort of look at it. Okay, there's 30 games been played now. Like, you're running out of time, unfortunately. And
I feel like we've run out of time, because Newcastle had a period where they just weren't scoring goals, and I was saying they're not top 4 quality.
But they've come over it.
They are. And they should get 4th.
They've won the last 5. I mean, like 5 wins in a row. That's not to be sniffed at. When you look at it, they're the only team other than Arsenal and Man City to do that all season, to win 5 Premier League games in a row. That is, and I know they've probably had a winnable run of games, but they've just won 3 in a week. You know, they beat Man United at home. They backed it up by beating Brentford away.
Was like very comprehensive. As deserved a win as anyone has had all season.
Yeah,
they're not just winning games now. They're like,
but they've won the following 2 as well, exactly. And that's what's impressed me about it. Is I thought they've got these performances in them. Like, they absolutely battered us at the end of last season. There's some good wins in the first half of the season. Like, they've shown that they are bloody hard on their day. But what I think they deserve credit for is, you know, they've beaten Man United. That is a big emotional high, right? But they've gone to West Ham and beat West Ham 5-1. And then they've gone to Brentford. Brentford only lost 1 home game all season prior to that on Saturday. And they go there and they find a way to just win it 2-1. It's a hard game. Maybe they were a little bit lucky, but get out of there, get the result and get on the road. Because I tell you what, those points in the bank, they're valuable now. And I think they're in a good position for it. And they deserve credit because they had to win. Man United won earlier in the day. Spurs obviously ended up winning in quite contentious fashion.
Quite contentious. They didn't win the game. They just didn't. Apart from the scoreline, they lost the game, Harry. They lost the game 4-1.
I mean, I watched it. I was angry, and like, we're not in any direct competition with Spurs this season. Actually,
now as I was then.
I have to be honest. Like, I'm pretty indifferent to who gets top 4 out of Man United and Spurs, because like, I really dislike Man United as well, and I've kind of made no secret of it. Yeah. But watching that Spurs game, honestly, like, if I was a Brighton fan, I would be apoplectic at all of that, because genuinely, to have that many decisions and not get any of them. I mean, if you go through all of them, right?
It feels sus. It feels sus.
It does. It actually does, and it stems kind of a wider discussion. People are very quick to go, well, there's definitely not an agenda, but why? Why are we so quick to say that? Why are we so quick to play down the idea of any sort of sinister involvement in how some of these teams are favoured with these decisions? And I know Spurs fans are going to push back on that. They've had some rough decisions. I know there was one at Southampton a couple of weeks ago that wasn't a penalty. Like, I get that, but when you have a game like that, Brighton had a goal disallowed for handball that is 50-50. If that's not given handball, there's no way that's disallowed on VAR. I think they give it, right? But because it was given in real time, they didn't see anything to overturn it, right? There's at least 2 penalties from set pieces that could have been given, and that's not even speaking about it's crazy. How wasn't given the one on Matoma? I was almost speechless at that. It's so bad. It's not just it wasn't given. How quickly that the check was complete is absolutely mind-boggling. Because on the commentary they were going mental. It's a definite penalty. This is going to get overturned. And within 10 seconds it was check complete and carrying on. And that is just not doing your due diligence as an official. That's the kind spin on it. The sinister spin on it is there's something unfortunate at play here, and I think that's all you can say on it. But Spurs were very lucky to win it. They didn't play well. They scored 2 very good goals from out of almost nothing, really, particularly the first goal. And I think that result probably takes Brighton out the running for top 4. If I'm honest, I think they got probably too much to do, and they weren't it to begin with.
And you know what? That's exactly the kind of reason why. If you ever interact with me in footballing debate or sports debate in general, you know what my stance is on referees in football in general, because it is the level it globally is at an all-time low, and has been for the last 5 years. Even with VAR getting introduced, which has reduced the level because the same mistakes are being made, and whoever is reviewing VAR are the same referees that are not taking the right decisions. So the mistake is compounded by twofold. And that is the kind of thing that, that's why I keep talking about this. That's why I keep like going on about it, because it costs people money. It costs teams like something like Brighton going to the Champions League would
status as well.
For everyone in the squad. None of these players, maybe Danny Welbeck, none of these players have played Champions League football. Like, that would be the first experience of it. And then you get a red card for De Zerbi, and De Zerbi is someone who is quite volatile on the touchline. But when that happens, and then that
was crazy.
And he reacts like that, and then he gets the sending off. Well, obviously he will be angry because you've given basically 4 or 5 decisions that are clear and obvious. Well, at least, if I'm being very kind, 3 penalties that are clear, obvious, no mistake about it. These are penalties. They are penalties.
And they got none.
And they got none. And to fail to do so, and then for the result to be what it is, that's apart from the 2 handballs. Which I personally don't think are handballs.
I think the one that goes in off McAllister has to be given. It's just the rule, like that, and that's agree with it or not. But if you score with your hand, it can't be a goal.
I think it hits his hip or his side and doesn't actually touch his elbow.
Yeah,
I don't think it does.
I think
but
that's the only.
You can see it as it touched his elbow, and therefore you have to give it as a handball. Mitoma, it's not handball. It touches. I think. The sleeve.
Yeah, that's what I say. I think it's that close that they just went with what was on field.
Which is why I'm saying I'm being incredibly kind here. What angers me the most is that the exact same thing as I expected happened. We'll get an apology, but the referee won't be.
It's within 24 hours.
They're held accountable for anyway.
No.
In any way.
He'll be back officiating. He'll be back on VAR next week. Atwell will referee again.
And the referee that elbowed Andy Robertson in the face. Andy Robertson does go to confront him about something, which he shouldn't do. It's halftime. Go to your locker room. Breathe, right? But a referee elbowing a player, like Mitrovic got a 9-game suspension.
Yeah, they've made a real example of him. I mean, they have to
Yeah.
do the same with this official to the minimum,
Exactly.
you'd think. It's just in the interest of fairness. I mean, if a player elbowed an official, I think they'd come down really hard on that. I think you wouldn't see them for probably 12 games if they actually physically. It's assault, really, isn't it? When it boils down to, you can't elbow someone like that in any walk of life. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. And I know he was provoked, and as you say, you probably shouldn't go up to him, but you can't do that. You're an official. You can have him booked. Like, there are actually procedures to react to stuff like this. Like,
and the official
I think he ended up getting booked anyway. But like, there are ways to deal with it. He's given the tools to deal with it as an official, and he reacts in a way that just isn't acceptable. Just as you say, it wasn't acceptable for Mitrovic a few weeks ago. So I think he's been stood down for now, and you would think that it's got to be for an extended period at the very least.
And obviously, when we say stuff like that feels sus, like that's there's something wrong there. It's in a jokey way, but I find it hard to believe that in normal circumstances these kinds of decisions would be taken. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fair.
Moving
on. Yeah.
Wolves Chelsea. First game of Frank Lampard back.
Yeah, I
manifesting this last episode.
I'd say, like, dreadful game. Don't have much to say on the game itself, other than just the quickly. Yeah, you didn't miss a lot. Another really just. I think the most notable thing you can say about Chelsea is you go onto your Twitter timeline at 4:45, and genuinely, I know the Spurs game is obviously contentious. There wasn't much talk of Chelsea, and they've just lost another game to a team in the bottom 6 or 7 of the table.
Quite used to now.
They've now played more games than they've got goals scored. They've got a negative goal difference. We're in April. I mean, and it isn't a contentious, massive talking point on your Twitter timeline. I think that just says the mediocrity that is being normalised at that club at the moment is unbelievable, and nothing embodies it more than appointing Frank Lampard, which I just think is. I know George and Fogg sort of mentioned it last week, but it's crazy. It's absolutely. It's just crazy. It's crazy. They've basically gone full circle because they got rid of him to get Tuchel in, who then wins them the Champions League. And then he was deemed not good enough at the start of the season. They've brought another manager in. They paid 20 million to get. Now they have to pay him whatever the length of his contract, whether they can come to an agreement on, a lot of money, right, to get rid of him. And then they brought Frank Lampard back in. And I know it's only a caretaker role, but honestly, it's not serious. It isn't serious. It's absolutely, it's crazy. He wasn't good enough for Everton. Everton are 18th.
Yeah, I think it's like they didn't have anyone else to bring in. Like, nobody else would accept an offer.
And I know the Potter thing had gone very toxic, so they probably had to get him out of there because it had gotten to the point where Chelsea fans just weren't having him, and they weren't having the idea of this project. They needed someone different. They needed a different voice. But I am amazed they couldn't come up with a better stopgap, short-term solution than to bring back the manager you sacked 2 and a bit years ago because he wasn't good enough at the time. It's just, and I know it was a different owner, but he's not a good manager. He's not proven that at any club so far. And I don't care if the vibes were good when he was playing some of the youth players under a transfer ban. The guy has not proven himself at any level, and that's fine. And they did it in a season where, you know, I've had this thrown at us all season as an Arsenal fan. You're only top because other teams are underperforming. Chelsea got 4th with 66 points. Like, it was one of the worst Premier League seasons from the big six. And I know Liverpool won the league this year, so it's probably not a nice thing to hear. But genuinely, Arsenal, Man United, Spurs, Chelsea, they were terrible that season. Leicester City nearly got in the top 4. They're 19th now.
Yeah.
There are circumstances. And to go back to Lampard, I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I'll probably end up eating my words when they beat us in a few weeks and cost us the title. But for now, I can only laugh at it because they're just dreadful.
Or when they win against Real Madrid in the Champions League, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, and that's everything. It's just written that off. I mean,
the Champions League games coming up in this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. So today, as you hear this, probably after you listen to this episode, you'll be watching the Champions League. But we'll get to that in a moment, because before we started recording, you said you wanted to say something about Erik ten Hag.
I did. So
What's wrong?
Man United at the weekend had another good win. So they bounced back from their defeat in Newcastle. They beat Brentford 1-0 and they've beaten Everton, and asserted themselves back firmly into the top four.
Mm-hmm.
Erik ten Hag comes out after the game and starts moaning about having to play the Saturday half 12. Now, he's not the first manager. He's not the first manager to do this, right? Klopp's done it. Arteta's done it. I think Guardiola's done it. I think I don't know if Tuchel might have done it. Someone else did it at some point. Moaning about having to play Wednesday then Saturday, and it's not necessarily that argument I've got a problem with. It's because it was prompted by someone asking him about the injury that Rashford picked up towards the end of the game. Went off with a muscular injury, and that prompted that response from him. Now, I'm not hearing it. I'm not hearing it from him, because this is a guy that has refused on multiple occasions all season across multiple competitions to rotate and use his squad properly. And this is a squad that's had, nearly 250 million spent on it in the summer.
Yeah.
Rashford missed the recent international break because of an injury. He then played 90 minutes at Newcastle, 90 minutes against Brentford in midweek, and he was only subbed against Everton because of an injury. He took 4 players off before he took Rashford off at the weekend, right? Yep. And then you look a bit further into it this season, and you look at the minutes.
He's done his research.
Look at the minutes Rashford's played this season. Oh well, I just thought I'd do my due diligence, because the Manchester manager hasn't, when he's gone into an interview and spouted absolute complete nonsense. So
I rate it.
You got to research it just a little bit.
Yeah.
He's played 29 games in the Premier League this year, which you'd expect because he's a key player for them. He's played 8 Europa League games, and the 2 he didn't play was because he was injured. So he couldn't play in the group stage games against Sociedad or against Sheriff. He's played 6 League Cup games, which was every game up to the final. And he's played in 4 FA Cup games. So that this season, in all competitions, is 47 matches. And we're in April. And then he's talking about the workload on players and the schedule. You need to use your squad better, and you need to be able to call upon some of these other players rather than having to play your full strength team. And Rashford isn't the only player he's done this with either. There's other players in that squad that have played significant minutes across multiple competitions, which is fine. If you want to go for everything, which he's been telling us all season, then go for it. But what you can't do is, when you get injuries, turn around and point to the schedule, because it doesn't wash with me at all. You need to use your squad better. You need to be more pragmatic about prioritising things rather than just thinking, well, we'll just play our full strength team every game, and when we get injuries, we'll make excuses. The schedule is not why Rashford is injured. 3 games in a week is standard procedure for any professional footballer. And I know the schedule he might turn around and say, well, if we've been playing Saturday half 5, we wouldn't be injured. Complete nonsense. You've used him for 3 90s in a week when he couldn't go to an England international camp and play 2 games because you were worried about him being injured. So that's negligence on your part, quite frankly. And he has no leg to stand on when he brings up the schedule in relation to that. If he wants to talk about the Saturday half 12 or the Wednesday fixtures, then I understand it, because it's been a long-standing concern for Premier League managers. Like, I get it to a point, but in relation to what he was talking about, it's utter nonsense. And it's not the first time he's just brought stuff out of nowhere to just essentially have a moan. So yeah, don't like the guy very much, and I don't think he talks any sense when he comes out with stuff like this. I think it's complete and utter garbage.
Wow. I mean, I agree. I agree on the fact that he should rotate more, and that he has used him way too much.
Never rotate more, but when he gets injuries, that you can't be wholly surprised.
Yeah,
that's all.
Like for him to play him in 390s and then blame the schedule for an injury.
When he's already an injury concern going into the game against Newcastle, he probably shouldn't have played against Newcastle, but he plays him for 90 minutes. Then he plays him for 90 minutes 3 days later, and then 3 days later after that. That's my point. And he's played him all season and worked into the bone. And I get it, he's a key player, but you got to have a bit of perspective when it comes to these things.
And I don't have a problem in general, like disregarding Rashford and Ten Hag for a minute. I don't have a problem with when managers come out and generally point out that the schedule is too much, because I think we're going into a phase with the Champions League for format change, which is coming in 2024. I want to say.
Yeah, the season after next. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to make it, 2 more games heavy, and then there's the Club World Cup format change, and that will add a ton of games in the summer, and it will reach a point where players just don't have time off. And when you work at a football club, it's not just the players. There's at Philly Union, there's probably like 100 employees that are, working every game and preparing for games for days in advance, for weeks even in advance, and that just adds to the workload. So there's probably a lot of frustration in terms of, we need a rest here. We don't want to have to work every day for 3 weeks straight. Like, that's not possible. So I don't have a problem with it personally, but the occasion on which Ten Hag said it, to be fair, after what all you've pointed out there, doesn't make
it just doesn't wash. It doesn't stack up on this occasion.
It doesn't at all. All right, we're going to the end of the hour of Just Enough Podcast here for the week, and we have a few more things to touch on, which happened in the last week. Villarreal winning at the Bernabeu 3-2 against Real Madrid.
What that was.
Quique Setien, in the locker room, he said the same phrase Ancelotti said when Real Madrid won against Barcelona 4-0 in the Copa del Rey in Camp Nou. When in the locker room he was telling them he'll have a day off, and he went, "Día libre mañana!" And Quique Setien did the same thing, and I just love that so much. If you know me, you know my feelings on Real Madrid. So
he loves them.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot. Anyway, quite the opposite, in fact. The Champions League is coming. Real Madrid are involved this week against Chelsea. So we're going to go back to Chelsea there. They play on the Wednesday. Only Frank Lampard's second game back.
Yeah.
After taking over Chelsea again, the club that sacked him for not being good enough. The irony is very big.
Palpable. It's lovely. It's
absolutely. But I feel something, Harry.
No, don't do that. No.
I feel something. I don't know.
No.
Real Madrid are quite far away from Barcelona in the league. Very far away, like 10 plus points. Chelsea are 11th, but it's just like slightly more reason for Chelsea to believe in something. I want both teams to go out, to be honest, but I just have a feeling, Harry. So you don't?
Okay. Yep. No, not at all.
1-1 there. Just confirming Real Madrid are 13 points behind Barcelona. Damn. Okay. So I'm just gonna shout for Chelsea. That's gonna be my wild prediction of the whole thing. Although you can make a wild prediction on Milan versus Napoli, because if you look at the league table, Napoli are about 20 points ahead of Milan, but Milan won in Diego Maradona Stadium 4-0.
That was wild. Yeah,
that was quite insane. I unfortunately didn't catch that game, but they play again. They meet again in San Siro this week, and then 2 weeks later, or is it a week later? I don't know the schedule of the Champions League.
Yeah, it's a week.
It's a week. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Then a week later, again in the Maradona. What are you feeling about this one? Because you can make a case for either way.
You can.
The other thing is, sorry, before you carry on, Milan actually did the double over Napoli, because the game at San Siro, Milan won as well. Quite late on, Olivier Giroud.
Yeah,
how are you feeling?
I know it's an interesting thing you bring up there, because the league table, they are 22 points behind them, and yet, as you say, in the one-off games, they've had their number. And the Champions League can often come down to stuff like that. You see teams that are noticeably worse, but in a knockout tie, anything can happen. And I don't think losing 4-0 has done them any favours going into that as sort of preparation. But the counter to that is obviously get that one out of the way, and you well, I don't think they'll be as naive going into the next one. I think they've already won the league. You can sort of chalk it down to bad day at the office, and they can switch their focus to the Champions League. And I know that it can go both ways with something like that, because obviously they've not been to a quarter final before, so it's a big occasion for them. How will they handle that? But on the other hand, they already have the league wrapped up. So in terms of the intensity they can go into the games with, I think Osimhen's is a miss for them. He's not back, is he?
Osimhen, I don't think so.
No, I think he was out. I think he's certainly out the first leg anyway. So that makes them worse, obviously. But it'd be a good tie, because I wasn't that impressed with Milan across the 2 legs against Spurs, if I'm honest. But got the job done and have since gone and turned them over 4-0. So they'll fancy the chances.
Yeah. Osimhen is, I just confirmed it now, via Google. So thanks, Google, that he is absent from the first leg, which certainly changes a lot. I will say Napoli go through. Which is quite wild, because Osimhen is absent and Milan did the double against them. I just feel like Napoli are going to play in the Champions League final.
They're on the right side of the draw to do so, definitely.
They are. What are you feeling?
No, I'll go Milan. I'll keep it contentious here.
Okay. So we're 1-1 on both.
We can hedge your bets as a podcaster.
Hedge your bets. It's good for podcasting. I will tell you that. City Bayern, which takes place tomorrow or today if you're listening to this on the Tuesday. City Bayern. This is hard. This is really difficult to predict.
It is hard
Both
to call.
teams are just immense. But
I'm just going to go with... Yeah.
Go on. Who are you going to go for? That's a quick decision.
I'm going to go with what I want to happen, which is I want City to go through and have to play every single available fixture to them for the rest of the season. I want them to win the Champions League, but I want those 2 extra games in there, probably against Real Madrid. So give them the most intense 2 legs, maybe extra time, maybe goes to penalties, but just make them run, make them work for it, but ultimately come out on top. And they're into the Champions League semi-finals. Well done, lads.
I will say I predict City. Bayern have had this weird managerial change that nobody saw coming, but they played 3 games so far with a good old Tommy Tuchel. 2 wins and a loss. The loss came against Freiburg in the David Pokal, the first Freiburg win at Allianz Arena ever.
Yeah.
So that was quite, you'd have to be concerned if you're a Bayern fan. I don't know. I feel like City are just more stable. It's quite
I hate to say it, and I don't like what I'm seeing, but they have kind of low-key, high-key been very good for the last couple of months. Pretty much since they beat us, they've found something. And they've won every game bar that ridiculous game at Nottingham Forest where they probably should have won that 5 or 6-0. And that's in all competitions. They've just been relentless.
They've moved away from a right back in midfield,
they've moved away from a midfielder at left back as well.
Yeah, there's that as well. So good on them, because it was.
I wish they go back to it. I thought it was working fantastic, to be honest. Just get Bernardo Silva back at left back.
True. And then tomorrow, the other game happening tomorrow, Benfica Inter. Porto just snapped a 10 consecutive, a 10-win streak in the league for Benfica. That was quite hard to say for some reason.
Yeah.
And Porto just won that derby, and then they play Inter. I'll go Inter.
I think Benfica. I think they've been. I know the timing of it. As you said, they lost to Porto on. It was Friday, I think, wasn't it? They lost 2-1.
Yeah.
But they've been really good this season, and in the Champions League they've been really good. I mean, they topped a group with Paris Saint-Germain in it, and they did absolutely batter Bruges in the last round. I know they're terrible, but they did thump them over 2 legs. And I have a sneaky feeling. I think they're. I mean, look, I got a good look at Sporting Lisbon over 2 legs, and I thought they were very good and we weren't very good in the 2 games. But Benfica are much better than them in the league, and so I think they're well equipped. And everything I've seen them this season, they've got some good players. Like I think they could reach the final. to be honest. They're the draw on.
Wow.
But when you look at it, like, they're not much worse. They're Inter scraped through that tie with Porto, right? It was really 50-50. Porto should have scored at the end of that tie and at least taken it to extra time. And I know they've just lost to them, but they're 10 points clear of them in the league. So they should, in theory, be better than Porto. And as I said, I thought Sporting Lisbon gave a good account of themselves in both the Champions League and the Europa League so far. Yep. So I think Portuguese football's in a good place, actually, funnily enough. I think some of these teams, that when you watch them, I think they are better set up to play against better teams, like from other European leagues, than when you play against some of these German sides, for example. And I'm picking up, just like absurdly expansive, and you just look at it and go, "There's no way you're not gonna beat Man City going to the Etihad and trying to blitz them like it's just suicidal." There needs to be an element of pragmatism to it.
Didn't Man City win like 7-0 against Sporting last season?
Yeah, you don't need to say that. You don't need to say that. Why have you done that?
I'm just saying, Portuguese football is in a great place, and Sporting Lisbon, we're brilliant against Arsenal. I thought they were really good, and like deserved their qualification.
I have a soft spot for Portugal.
They just let me down, man. Every time I feel like, Benfica are gonna like get into like
that's my dark horse to get to the final. Most people would say, I think so. I think they could win both those ties that they potentially have. So that's my, out there shout.
My final is Napoli Real Madrid, but I feel like a lot of people are predicting the same thing. Good on you. You know what? Good on you. I'm gonna stick with my Inter shout because I feel like Portugal
don't let me down now. I've gone quite big on that.
Portuguese teams to do well, they let me down. So if they don't let you down this time, all my hands.
Yeah.
All right. As we end this episode, as we end every week, Harry, you came prepared with your short king of the week, and I didn't. So you go first, and I'll probably just go with your vote anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, right? So I did go through all the Premier League games, and I genuinely couldn't find a person that had scored a goal that was under 6 foot. So we were immediately struggling for a player. So it's not a player this week. It's an owner. If that narrows it down for you, it's an owner. Do you have any guess at who I might be getting at here?
An owner?
The
Philadelphia Union owner is he's quite tall. What am I talking about?
We've alluded to him already in this podcast.
Oh.
The viewers are going to...
I can't remember.
Well, I'm glad you pay such close attention to what I'm talking about. It's Todd Bowley, of course.
Oh,
but that genius move. He's 5'7".
Okay.
As well. Okay. So I was like, I've got to make sure here.
Yeah, he didn't come to mind because I didn't know he was short. I thought
he's
he was
5'7". He's 5'7". Yeah, so definitely meets the criteria. And I just love what he's doing over there at Chelsea. He's just providing so much entertainment this season. He's sacked multiple managers this season. He's brought back Frank Lampard, and they're still losing football matches. So, long may it continue, and he's my nomination for Short King of the Week.
You know what, Harry? Special edition Short King of the Week is granted.
Thank you.
Short King of the Week for this week.
He's got to be. He's got to be. I think the Chelsea lads would be quite happy with what we've done there. So,
and I would like, if I was a betting man, I'd put quite significant money on the fact that Fergal and George would be delighted with the Short King of the Week this week. It's Chelsea, and it's because he appointed Frank.
Yeah, they wanted Lampard back, so there you go, lads. He's your Short King of the Week.
There you go. Deserving of it, too. Okay. Thank you, Harry.
Pleasure.
Apologies again, everyone, for this coming out a day late, but, it was probably for the better because Harry had the chance to diffuse, and I had the chance to diffuse. I don't think it would have been a good podcast yesterday. I was honestly...
people are after different things in, mate. Some people want to hear us just shout and scream. They don't want reasoned football analysis. They want...
Yeah, quite true.
Maybe. It might be disappointing, but who knows?
Okay. Catch me on Friday. Feel self-indulgent, but sorry about that. But yeah, throughout the rest of the week, go to Twitch and go to Football Manager and find the stream that says FM Community Charity Maidstone United, and you'll have tons of fun. It's quite hilarious because of its nature of it passing on from one streamer to the next, and everyone just stepping on the toes of everybody else. And then everyone also has like punishments for the amount of money you donate. So if you donate something, the streamer will most likely have some sort of incentive for you to donate. So I, for example, will eat a cherry tomato, and tomatoes on their own make me kind of...
They're horrible.
They're
horrible.
terrible. Thank you.
Horrible. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
So yeah, well, I'll be eating raw tomato like that every time you donate, and have more incentives for donation as well. So every streamer will have that. Just go there, enjoy the ride for the rest of the week, and yeah, we'll see you after the fact. Hopefully on a Monday this time. All right. Cheers, Harry. Cheers, everyone. Have a good week.